If there were a competition to find who loses their job the fastest in the world, the position of British Prime Minister would probably top the list. The reason is that in just 10 years, the UK has had to change 7 different Prime Ministers. Most recently, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has had to announce his resignation and transfer power to his successor in the coming months. The question is, what exactly is happening to the UK? Why is a country once considered the model of Western stability changing leaders like changing clothes? Is the cause Brexit, or the energy crisis triggered by the war in Ukraine? Of course, these things have an impact. But the biggest influence on the current British Prime Minister's seat is the issue of immigration. This is an issue that every Prime Minister promises to limit before running for election. However, once in power, everyone becomes disillusioned because they find it impossible to solve. In the eyes of many native-born people in the UK, immigrants bring a lot of trouble. Of course, we don't even need to discuss illegal border crossing, because every country forbids that. But legal immigration with proper visas is what is worth discussing. The reason why some native citizens hate immigrants. It is because immigrants cause them to lose their jobs, instead of hiring native Brits. Now, businesses hire immigrants because it is cheaper. For manual labor jobs, hiring this immigrant workforce is extremely satisfying. The wages paid are lower, but their productivity is higher. They do whatever they are told. They don't argue, and they don't threaten to sue at every little thing. Most importantly, their work ethic is very diligent, unlike some entitled native workers. You pay these native workers high wages. But in return, their attitude is extremely difficult. That is why businesses really love to hire immigrants. Consequently, native people end up losing their jobs a lot. This is exactly why some native people in the UK strongly dislike opening the doors to immigrants. The next issue with immigration is the burden on social welfare. Schools and hospitals are overloaded, medical waits are longer, and rent prices are high. Because the supply of social housing is limited while the demand is too high. And the most ironic thing is that British culture is changing at a dizzying pace. Just by having a Chinatown appear in the middle of London, British people already feel like they are losing their home country. Because in that neighborhood, all the signs are in Chinese, the people there don't speak English, and they celebrate the Lunar New Year. Their fashion and style of dress are also different, and that's just the Chinese population. Beyond that, there are Indians, Bangladeshis, and Turks, who also have their own neighborhoods. Their way of life and their languages are also very distinct. This has made the native residents feel that they no longer recognize their own country. Their homeland took so much effort to build, like how Newton had to rack his brain to come up with an invention. Combined with the fact that their ancestors spent hundreds of years exploiting others to make England as developed as it is today. Yet now, they allow descendants from other countries to come here and enjoy the same beautiful life as they do. That feels completely unfair. The most notable aspect of the immigration problem is theft. You have to come to London to truly understand it. The petty theft in Vietnam is nothing compared to this. The clearest example would be asking singer Tuan Hung, as thieves smashed his car window to take the items inside. They are incredibly brazen and aggressive. Even if you report it to the police, no one can help because theft in Europe has become a specialty. This is the reason why every politician promises to reduce immigration before taking office. The only problem is that they can never actually do it. Because immigrants bring so many benefits to the UK. So, it just remains a contradiction. If they allow mass immigration now, the local people will complain about losing their cultural identity, losing their jobs, and all sorts of other things. But if they restrict immigration now, the UK economy simply cannot develop. So, what choice should be made now? The reason why they are forced to accept immigrants is that the UK's population is currently aging. There are many people collecting pensions but few people paying taxes. Because of that, leaving the British to take care of each other is impossible. Compared to other countries in the world, young people in the UK can be considered a privileged class. Right? They have been pampered since childhood, so if you ask them to do a job like changing diapers for the elderly for a meager salary, who would do it? Even if they did, it wouldn't be enough because the number of elderly people in the UK is too high. A hospital needs 1,000 nurses, while they can only recruit 700 of British origin. So, for the remaining 300, they are forced to hire from India, the Philippines, or Pakistan. There is no other way. The same applies to other sectors like construction, agriculture, or restaurants, not to mention another form of immigration, which is through international studies. These are the people who bring immediate cash to the UK. Because, if they let local students study, the government would have to spend more money, provide subsidies, and they haven't seen any profit yet. Meanwhile, international students coming to the UK bring direct profits, pumping cash into the UK economy. It is an enormous amount of money every year. This is also the reason why the UK is forced to open its doors to immigrants to maintain society, because without immigrants, there would be no labor to get any work done. All these problems stem from the low birth rate in the UK. Currently, the average is only 1.44 children per woman. That is why they lack a local workforce and are forced to import labor from other countries. Importing labor from other countries leads to locals losing their jobs, rising rent prices, insufficient social welfare, and an increase in theft and crime. This is the problem that has caused British prime ministers to constantly lose their jobs. They struggle to balance preserving their national identity with developing their economy. To develop the economy, they are forced to open their doors to immigrants. But when there are too many immigrants, the country sees more theft, and the local identity is challenged, making life harder. The question is, why don't developed countries just encourage childbirth, and wouldn't that solve the problem in 20 years? I don't understand why the more developed a country is, the lower its birth rate tends to be. The UK might not look like it, but its birth rate is still relatively high at 1.44 children per woman. Meanwhile, in Germany and Italy, the rate is only 1.35 and 1.2 respectively. The most shocking one is South Korea. It only has 0.75 children per woman. Meanwhile, to maintain a stable population size from one generation to the next, a country needs a fertility rate of about 2.1 children per woman. The reason for this reluctance to have children is that the cost of raising a child in developed countries is now too high. In poor countries, the mindset is that one more person means one more worker in the family. It's just an extra bowl and pair of chopsticks, nothing more. So, having children is incredibly convenient. A quick meal of potatoes and you're ready to conceive the next day. However, it's a different story in developed countries. Giving birth to a child comes with all sorts of expenses. The cost of education alone is overwhelming. Because kids nowadays take extra classes from dawn till dusk, they need tutoring for English, martial arts, drawing, music, dance, singing, chess, and so many other things. That is why the cost of raising a child today is extremely high. Not to mention the second reason, which is that housing prices in big cities are something no young person can reach. Even if you work and save your whole life, you can never think of buying a house in the capital, and if you rent now, it already eats up half your income. So how are you supposed to raise a child? Instead, raising a dog or a cat for companionship is much more enjoyable nowadays. The cost of caring for them is lower, and their living space requirements are smaller too. You don't have to worry about their schooling at all. You never have to ponder or calculate how to get this guy into high school. Clearly, the income of people in developed countries is very high, but it comes with equally high living expenses. As a result, gradually they have no desire to give birth to anything anymore. And if they don't give birth, where will the labor come from? They are forced to open the doors for immigrants to flood in. But letting immigrants flood in leads to arguments like in the UK right now. In just 10 years, they've changed 7 prime ministers, which is enough to show how much of a headache this issue is for them. After all, everything has a price to pay. If you want to develop the economy, you have to accept immigrants flooding in, accept theft, and accept the dilution of culture. But if you still want to keep the local culture and preserve peace, the economy can never develop. The best solution is probably to find every way to encourage domestic childbirth. Young people now must date more actively, build families, and have children. Of course, if you give birth indiscriminately and without a plan, it will also become a burden to society. That is why the best way is for young people to practice with each other first until they are proficient. And when practicing together, you must put safety first, and Herfield condoms are always ready to help you do that.